All right, it's a moment you've all been dreading. It's come time to talk about carbohydrates. Now, you can't gloss over this module. It's really important that you understand it. You can't, I don't want to hear it. We need to cut through the myths and misconceptions when it comes to carbohydrates. We don't want to demonize them, but we don't want to give them a blanket sort of ticket of approval either, because it's really, really important to cut through the sort of polarization of carbohydrates and look at their functions and roles within the body so you can make some better choices based on what you actually need. So to break it down really simply, carbohydrates, the primary function of them is energy production. There are some enzymatic processes that carbohydrates can assist with, but for the most part, energy production is the only function of carbohydrates. And on that point, a little knowledge bomb you can impress your friends with is that there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. Now, if you're Asian, you're saying, you don't understand, I need carbs, I need rice. The truth is you don't. We do have essential amino acids, protein, essential fatty acids, fat, but there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. So we might have some food patterns and behaviors that revolve around a steady influx of carbohydrates, but the only function of carbohydrates is energy production. Is this the only place we get energy from? Of course not. We'll discuss that obviously in fats, but that's the main function of carbs. So this word you're going to hear a lot, glycogen, and all carbohydrates convert to this substrate called glycogen. So whether it's a Mars bar, a Tim Tam, or a piece of pumpkin, then all that differentiates these is obviously the volume, the density of carbohydrate in that product, but also the types of carbohydrates contained within. So if we refer to something as being fast-acting carbohydrates, or fast digesting, that means high on the glycemic index, and that means it's usually a simple sugar. Now, there's a bajillion different types of sugar, lactose, galactose, fructose, sucrose. The list goes on and on and on and on. Some are slightly better than others, but for the most part, sugars are sugars. Now, slow digesting carbohydrates we refer to as low on the glycemic index, the speed at which it converts to glycogen. And that's where we get more complex carbohydrates. So things like fruits and vegetables. The fruits, the fiber contained in the fruits will actually equalize the sugars. But for the most part, vegetables, some grains and seeds and so on, nuts. And then fiber is basically no hormonal impact. So the main sort of, takeaway from this is that carbs aren't necessarily bad, but my little 2 cents on carbohydrates, I've been saying this ad nauseum. My belief, based on my experience, has been the reason that most people have inflammatory disease, poor body composition and poor performance is too much of the wrong kinds too often. I'll repeat that again. Too much, wrong kind, too often. And most people are just blissfully unaware of the impact of the carbohydrate choices they're making. And we can't blame them. We were brought up in a time and space which we were led to believe that if we're going to do sport, we're going to do something active, that we need energy through the day, we need to have a big bowl of cereal and some yogurt and some fruit, and we've had an absolute carb and sugar bomb, and that's why we've led to poor health outcomes. Now, when it comes to body composition in the context of this program, and we're sort of weighing up the scales, where does pumpkin sit compared to sweet potato, or how much, spinach versus kale, let's be realistic. Absolutely no one got fat off eating too much kale and spinach. Very few people got too overweight by eating too many sweet potatoes. Where people go wrong is the toast, the breads, the pastas, the processed foods, the convenience foods and the snacks and the sugars with the ice creams and chocolates and all this kind of stuff. So it's this here which we're really, really concerned about. So when it comes to carbohydrate storage capacity and why we need to be concerned about how much of what kinds, it all comes down to this simple equation. Carbohydrate storage capacity is limited. We have a limited ability to actually store it anywhere. Liver, about 50 to 100 grams being a woman. And then the rest of it goes into muscle mass, so about 350 to 400 grams, give or take. Now, once you're carbohydrate full, it doesn't take a whole lot. Now, irrespective of where these carbs are coming from, take a look on the back of a box of cereal and see what 100 grams of cornflakes or whatever, how much carb is in that. You'll work out, you fill up this muscle glycogen pretty quickly. Now, walking, talking, blinking, Tindering, doing whatever you do, you're going to be burning some amount of glycogen, but really it's your hard workouts and a strenuous exercise which depletes this. But a lot of people get this equation wrong, both in terms of understanding how much they can store or how much they're actually utilizing. Here's the big takeaway. The glycogen which you cannot store, remember all carbs convert to glycogen, a little pirouette. The glycogen which you cannot store in the muscle mass will be converted and stored in fat mass. Now that is why absolutely nobody who, let's say, fictitious character, I'm 10 kilos overweight, my performance isn't fantastic, I've got some health issues, or 20 kilos overweight, whatever it was. How'd you get there? Oh shit, I wasn't measuring how much pumpkin I was eating. It wasn't, I was at one big meal at McDonald's back in 2007. What happens is we're making poor choices daily, overdoing it with the wrong kinds, having this hormonal cascade with insulin and so on. We'll talk about that at a deeper level later in the program. But they're just spilling over daily and accumulating all this body fat. So we need to bring it back. Look at carbs simply for the role that they play. Create energy from fats? Absolutely. It's a big part of trying to become fat adaptive and metabolically flexible. And being very specific going forwards about the types of carbs that we consume, how often, and in what volume. Hope that helps with a quick little overview on carbohydrates.